Good morning, everybody. It is just after 10:30 a.m. UK time, and this is Sunday Club. Welcome. Apologies for the slight delay this morning. Anyone who's seen one of these streams before will know that we have issues with, that I have issues with Streamlabs OBS, which is the software that I use to stream, and it seems to forget how to use my microphone pretty regularly, which is very frustrating. So let me just check the stream audio is coming through. Yeah, cool. Okay, so that's my voice. I can turn that off. We'll check that later. Okay, stop. Okay, cool. So Sunday Club is a weekly live stream where we live stream Ruby on Rails coding, and we're working on a Ruby on Rails app. And what we do is try and look at things from a learner's perspective, or just kind of lay out options for developers that are interested in how to tackle different problems in Ruby on Rails. And the app that we are working on is basically like an app where you build websites for this stream or for any stream. So you what we want to be able to do is have people provide their Twitch stream or their YouTube feed, and it will build a little website for them and give them options for making a page per stream or something like that. So you can go back and catch up on progress in the Sunday Club channel, and you can also dive into any of the specific episodes. So what have we done recently? So we did a series of 3 or 4 streams focusing on the user onboarding for the Sunday Club app, and that was kind of just to get that initial flow working. We basically have some sort of homepage that users can access, and then they type in information and then go through a step-by-step process, and then at the end they created their user account, and that all worked. We live streamed it, so it wasn't the most polished code, but it kind of worked. And then last week what we wanted to do is get that code up on Heroku, so basically get the website working so that people can actually access it. And so the first thing I want to start with is follow up from last week, because I wrapped up the stream and we kind of had things working / there was a lot of things that weren't. And so I took some time during the week, and what I did was kind of just fixed enough issues to get things working. So let's start at a couple of notes here. So let's start at GitHub Actions, I think. Where's my notes gone? Bear with me just a second. Oh, I have genuinely moved them somewhere. Oh, sorry, they're full screen on the end there. Let me just take these down. Okay, cool. Yeah, GitHub Actions is a good place to start. Okay, so let's show some code stuff. Cool, so you should be able to see GitHub right now. So we can actually make this font a bit bigger so it's easier to read on the stream. Right, very exciting. So what were we trying to do here, and why were we trying to do it? So we basically want it so that when we push code to GitHub, like making a pull request as an example, or perhaps pushing up a Git branch that we're working on, we want it to run our tests, which is something that up until now we've just been doing locally. So we've written some tests, but they were just happening on our machine. Okay, so I don't know if we touched on this at the start of last week, but why do we want to do this? We want to do it so that we are confident that the code that is in a pull request or being asked to be merged into master, if we didn't write it, at least passes the existing tests, and if it modifies any tests, we can see that the new ones pass as well. And one of the cool things that this enables is, as you get more faith in your tests, no matter what kind of tests they are, you can actually enable what's known as continuous deployment. So you can say, okay, well, if someone merges a pull request and all of those tests pass on master, we're so confident that what we're going to do is just deploy that new version of the code straight to the website, straight to the app to swap it out. So on Heroku, which was the host we were looking at using, they support that process. So they will say, hey, well, we'll watch your GitHub branch for you, usually master or main or production or some branch that you pick. And they say, right, what we'll do is we Heroku will watch this branch for you, and if you commit to it, you merge a pull request or you push to master, then and we will deploy that version of the code, but we will only do it, you can have this as a setting, we'll only do it if all of the tests pass in your CI, continuous integration. And that's what GitHub Actions is providing for us. So that's the benefit of what we can do here. So what does it actually look like? Well, I took the code that we had and I rebased it down. So I didn't do that on a stream. I just did it kind of while I was fixing some of these issues. So this is the pull request actually implementing GitHub Actions. And you can see that we now have this extra section which wasn't here before on our previous pull request. We just have all checks have passed. And then it has these Rails tests. And these are the tests that we're also running locally in our spec. And we can click through and you can actually see the GitHub action. So it takes us over to checks, and this has triggered a GitHub Actions. And it has run our tests, and then we can see what's happened. So that's kind of what this is all doing. Now, why didn't this work last week? So I missed something. We were following kind of a couple of templates, I think. And by the end, we had got to the point where we were getting Webpack errors. And we had basically missed out. If I jump into the file that we added, the workflow.yml, I can just make this font size even bigger, give us a bit more space here on the code. So what this action does is it creates some environment variables. It here's the job to be done, and the first one is set up some services. So we need a Postgres database, which it sets up for us. So we found during the stream that we were using using an outdated Ruby action script, and we found that was frustrating, but that wasn't really anything we could do about that. In the initial blog post we had actions set up Ruby, whereas that's now been deprecated and we wanted to use Ruby set up Ruby. That's all fine. This is what we were missing. We then didn't actually have an explicit step to do yarn install. So we needed that because that was then where we were failing. It was like, hey, I want to run your test, but you don't have yarn. And I can't remember what the error we were getting was, but you can jump back to the previous stream. So that's basically another bit of setup for the action. Another bit of setup installing the Postgres client. Then we've got bundle install. We had to use a specific version. I think I need to update my local version here, and then we can remove that. And then we would just set up the database. So this is much more normal. Then we can set up the database. If you remember, we added this config file in our local environment. And what this step does is just replace the one on the CI server with that. So it uses, it replaces this one with this one, which has the right access in it. Creates the database, and then using the environment variables that we've already set, it then run the tests. We're setting those ones again. Actually, we probably don't need both of these, actually. Rails end, Postgres user, and Postgres password. Yeah, these three can probably go, actually. It doesn't really matter. And this is the file that was there set up previously. Well, let's actually make that change right now, just so we can show it working. So let's jump over to here. I think so. I think the blog post said that the person who wrote it wanted to keep all the env variables at the top so they could be seen. Fair enough. Like, if this doesn't work, we can go back. So let's make that change, and then let's jump over to terminal. And we'll just do status. Yep, that's the file we've changed. Yep, we've just removed those so we can see that they're staged. They're green, so they're staged. And then we can just do git commit. And I actually just want to add a little message. We'll just rebase this live on the stream this morning. Normally I do these in like homework editions or something like that, so we can just do fix up, remove duplicate env. So we've got that. We can then just quickly rebase that change in. It jumps over to my code. This is to do with the rebases, and we can just fix up that commit. So we've now changed that file, and that means we can just force push up because I've rebased it. So what should happen is, because I've changed this pull request, if we go back over, we should now rerun the tests. So this is one of the advantages. So I haven't rerun my tests locally to check they work, but if you look, we now have, these should be the same. Does this create 2 jobs running? Because that doesn't seem like we need 2 jobs. Yeah, I don't think we really need to. We only really care about the pull request one, I think. So actually we could change that as well, I think. So that could go. Yeah, can I cancel these? Yes, cancel run. Cancel run. What happens if you do that on the actual pull request? So those have been cancelled. We go requested that they're cancelled. So this is all GitHub Action stuff. So this is all kind of follow up from last week. I don't know how long it actually takes to cancel them. Okay. Oh, there we go. Great. Okay, so a few seconds. So then we can jump back to our pull request. And so now we should, yeah, now we have our red X. So this is saying some checks were not successful. And if you notice that you can still take the action that you want. So rebase and merge in this case for this button, but it's not green. It's not saying, hey, this is great. It's telling you that there's some sort of problem here. So what we can do is do the same thing again and go to our editor. We've made a change here. Well, I'll just do this one in, just do this one in VS Code. Just commit that real quick. Let's rebase that in. So we're only going to run that when we make pull requests. And so now we should see these update again. So this is still our pull request to implement these GitHub Actions. Yep, so it knows that they have... Yep, and so then they're running again. So now we only get 1. I don't think we really... I don't really care about just pushing up every single... running tests on every single push for this repo. You probably would normally have that. For other CIs, if you cared about once your test suite get past a certain size, for example, you might not be able to run them locally. So every time you might just push them up to see if they pass or fail. So if these if this action, these tests then pass, we'll get our green tick and we can merge that in. And if you remember, we actually jumped back a little bit because we had a work in progress branch that we were working on. And I had, in a homework edition version, gone back and rebased that Git commit. And one of the downsides was that I then didn't have kind of visibility on the tests on GitHub. So we kind of jumped over, did the GitHub Action stuff and got that working. So let's leave that running. So we had some other follow-up. Okay, so the other another bit of follow-up was the domain. So we have sundayclub.co, and we currently have no such app, but I did get this working. I was pretty sure I got this working. Ah, okay. So I have fun. Okay, so good follow-up because I had got that working during the week. I have obviously subsequently broken that again. Let me just take a look on the other screen. I'm just going to go take a look at whether I changed anything after that. I genuinely thought I had left that running. Okay, so settings. Yeah, I thought that was running, but it doesn't. Yeah, oh, okay, so I am getting a. Okay, that is frustrating. So the other service that we used, sorry, I'll pull this back onto that screen in just a moment. I'm just getting the right pages up. Bear with me just a second. There's about 4,000 cookie notifications that you have to go through to log into anything. Oh, okay. So okay. I apparently have saved my, there we go. So not 100% sure where I have saved my, in which 1Password entry I've saved my phew, okay, that worked, thank God. Cool. So let me just update that because I don't want that to happen again. Sorry, I'm just using 1Password on the other screen just because it's got accounts and stuff in it. Okay, so let's just cool. So that won't happen again. Okay, so we have. So it must be pointing at something to do with Heroku. The domain must be pointing at something to do with Heroku because we're getting the Heroku error message saying there's no such app. But we. Yep. So this is. What the, so we pointed our name servers at the Cloudflare, and then this is the entry that we were missing. We basically had an A record in here, and you can't have an A record with Heroku because they use dynamic IPs. So you need to use the alias on the root of the domain. So I pointed the alias at the root with this weird kind of generated DNS entry that they give us, and that was working. It genuinely was working, which is how I have this. I wonder if it's the HTTP certificate. HTTPS, sorry. I wonder if that's what is happening there. Do we need to do something on the Heroku side? Okay, so we've got. Okay, so we probably need to do something there, but it was working. That's very strange and disheartening. And if we go to the actual Heroku UI, so if we go to that directly, so there's obviously something going on there in my setup. This is the Heroku app URL that you get, sundayclub.heroku app. We then can use the app within Heroku. So we know that's working. There's obviously just some sort of mismatch there through either Cloudflare or Heroku. Yeah, I know that you used to have to put an actual like an SSL. I don't know if it was the load balancer or something. They basically, Heroku had a module on the thing that you had to install, and at one point you had to pay for it, then it became free. But as I understood it, we didn't need to do that, so I've obviously missed something in that setup. Okay, but I'm not gonna focus on that today. Okay, so I was hoping that was successful follow-up. That was not successful follow-up. And the last thing I've got in my follow-up notes is from the Tailwind part working production. So you can actually see that now has the right formatting on it. And that is one of the last. We have a failure here. Okay, that's not good. Okay, that's strange because it passed literally the previous one passed, and the only thing we changed was the setup. So I'm just going to do rerun. Can I just do rerun this job? Okay, let's give that a try. So the thing we changed in here was in this commit here. And we had a few things. So the first thing was removing the stylesheet link tag and updating it with a stylesheet pack tag. So that, I'm not sure if the stylesheet link tag is from the original asset pipeline, from the sprockets based asset pipeline, but it was working locally. So I don't know if the there was some sort of setting in my Webpack for development which basically was handling this for me. But this resolved the issue. We then did rename the CSS to style sheets. There was a few people that said they had an issue with that because of some sort of expectation of a couple of something to do with the JavaScript bundles expecting CSS as some sort of reserved name, so I just renamed it as style sheets, which was a suggestion. I'm not actually sure that was required. I think that this fixed the issue to get that working on Heroku. So that was a Heroku issue rather than a GitHub Actions issue. So that is how we now have styling on the Heroku side of things, which is pretty cool. So hopefully, so that was the third thing. So that was from Tailwind, which brings us back up to the front end, which is what we want to take a look at today. And I'm just going to check the audio on this stream really quickly, just to check that it's still working. Yeah, cool. So we can just jump back over to see if that action is going to pass for us. Hopefully we don't make those flaky. Okay, that's it. Oh, okay, so we're on the checks, not the actions. Okay, let's just bump that down just a little. Okay, so we can, hopefully if that works, we will then have our CI up and running, and then we can jump back over to our other work in progress branch, and that has more tests in it. I think these are already running our original 8 tests, because this is a branch from one of our early commits. I think it's a branch from master as it is on GitHub, but we have done work subsequent to that in our branch, in our work in progress branch, that is still way too long. So what we can potentially do, I don't know how long, I said 10 minutes ago, but is that the original run of these? Let's see if it gets past. Oh, I think it failed on Postgres client previously, so hopefully that will work. Okay. So what do I want to take a look at today? So I want to go back to the front end and start making things look nice and work, and kind of have this flow that we can put things together. Now that we have a user onboarding flow, obviously they can't do anything when they actually onboard, but we have it. We have a domain name, so that's cool, and we have hosting that the real world can access. So we now have not just a front end that we can access locally, but something that we can put out into the world. So we want to go back and take a look at that. I think there are a few things in there that are worth looking at from a learner's perspective and around the user interface, which we touched on originally, and also looking at front end even CSS-based dependencies. So I'm not talking about dependencies like React or anything like that, but there was a new version of Tailwind that came out this week, which I saw on Twitter, and even using something like that places an external dependency on your front end, which I think is really a useful point to look at from a learner's point of view. So how that might affect your kind of stability in your project. If there's only 1 or 2 developers, for example, you could write something without a kind of fast, not necessarily a fast moving framework, but something with a framework that you can rely on to be more yours and in your control. Whereas if you need to keep that framework up to date, that creates another dependency for you. Okay, so we have got another failure here in the GitHub action, which is really strange because I really thought I had only changed between this pass here and this pass here, or this failure here, sorry. I genuinely thought I had only changed the line here. Oh, and the envars. Oh, I changed the envars. Maybe they were always going to fail. Did they not pass? Okay, so could we put those back? Because I just want to get this. Okay, so let's just chuck those back and do this. Maybe that was it. Sorry, that might be. I'm just going to do this quickly on stream. So I'm just going to update the workflow. Let's just quickly rebase that in. Yeah. And then we can push that up. So yeah, sorry, I forgot I changed those. I thought we had a pass with those in, but clearly not. Although it says we don't need them till here. Maybe that wasn't the case. Not sure what's going on there. Okay, let's leave that for now. We can come back to that. That's not what we want to focus on today. So let's take a look at front end stuff. So we're on GitHub Actions. Let's jump back over to master for now. And actually, we've got a longer running branch with a source tree with our very tiny fonts that we can't read on the stream. So let's GitHub Actions. So then we've got our install pundit branch here, which has got all of the work we did on those early streams, which is still incredibly long, which is where we want to be basically. But install devise gem. Oh man, there's still so much work to be done on getting that in. So that is actually the branch we want to be on. So in source tree, I can just double click to jump onto that branch. And you'll see that it goes bold here on the left. I'm aware that the font isn't very readable on the stream, but I'm just doing this so that I can visually look at where the two branches diverge. Okay, so what we're hoping to do is these 4 commits here, these ones, so that blue block turns up. If you notice, they are actually way... they're on a separate branch. So master is down here. Then you get your red, the kind of red line represents this install pundit branch, which does more than install pundit, but that's where we are. And then we have on this other branch, this is our GitHub Actions branch. What we really was hoping to do was to get that merged in today, this morning, and then rebase our other one on top of it, so that as we then made pull requests from this, that we would then get the tests that passed and worked and things like that. So if that passes, maybe we'll get that done this morning, but it's off from one password because that's very aggressive. Bear with me, I'm just going to jump onto the other screen again. Okay, apparently it won't give me any preference view, which is not cool. Oh, yeah, there it is. Sorry, it was behind the other ones. So mini browsers. Oh, cool. I can show inline menu in Safari. Cool. Okay, just turn that off. So that should now not show here. Great. Cool. That's handy. I've got to start using a different browser for these streams. Okay, so we can then create a user account here if we want to, but we don't really care about that too much. So let's take a look at the new Tailwind. So I saw this on Twitter this week. So for anyone who'd watched the early streams, if you're interested in going back, we did a couple of streams of getting this set up and working, and you really see me like interested in like it is a totally different way of thinking about kind of the CSS and HTML working together, and even different. It's even a more extreme version of the utility first mentality than I had before, which was mixing utility classes with kind of BEM syntax, which I actually always found a good halfway house between the two. Tailwind, looking at it this week again for a little while, really is just not leaning into just using those Tailwind classes and treating those as the kind of building blocks. I think there are some trade-offs around that. I think that I would be interested to see how that works on in more really complex UIs that multiple teams have to touch and things like that, and different marketing departments need to work on. That would be interesting. And the other thing that I was hoping to touch on today is how it plays alongside what front-end technology you're working with. So I think in the docs, I was looking through these for version 2, and they had like React, Vue, and one other as the kind of UI frameworks and where that lives. I'd be interested to see just someone who is using like just kind of more ERB partial based stuff. I'm aware, and what I'm really interested in looking is at Vue component from GitHub in terms of building the UI for a Rails app. If you are a learner and you've been kind of, you're watching the stream because you're interested in someone talking this stuff through, this is pretty overwhelming, and you can get really, really far without any of that stuff. Like without React, without Vue, without Vue component, like just simple ERB and building and using Rails will get you a huge distance. And I think it's really difficult as a learner that these options are often presented so quickly because many developers are using them on work-based projects or side projects or something like that. So it's all that the developers you may see are talking about, but in fact you on your starter project or on a first client build or something like that might not need them. So it's really difficult to ascertain why are you all using things that seem to add complexity when I just want to have like a to-do list that pops out, or orders things by the one that's to be done next, the task that's to be done next. That is very difficult, I think. And even as you then move through levels of experience, you're then bumping into, if you're contracting, moving between different UI frameworks and different projects, you're moving between even different implementations of that. So you might have let's say you're working in React, for example, you might have a React app that is a totally different app that grabs all of its data via an API versus something like a server-side rendered React. And your mentality of what you have to do in that totally changes, your kind of mental model of that. And from a learner's perspective, I think that makes things really difficult. So if hopefully someone has, suggested something that you come and take a look at this, but I think you don't need a lot of these things for a really long time if you're still able to make progress, if they're genuinely blocking what you're trying to accomplish. Like if you want a job at a place that uses front-end technology X, you really, you're going to need that to work at that place. But if you just need to get a project out of the door for a case study, for like a portfolio thing or something like that, you don't need to jump straight from learning Rails straight to learning a front-end technology. Even something like Tailwind, like you could just write your CSS classes. Like there's a whole other framework. There are huge pros and cons to doing that. So hopefully maybe we can kind of clip this bit and have it for learners to talk about. It's really difficult because you don't want to try and learn by learning so much so early. And there isn't necessarily a standard pattern or flow to move through those frameworks. It's everyone's experience is going to require them to jump to different points in different orders along that journey. So we're taking a look at Tailwind just because I was interested in it, but we could just as easily be writing this from scratch. So I hope that we can kind of clip that bit out and kind of point learners towards that. And hopefully, like I have used different things over my career, as I'm sure every other developer has. And if you read someone who's being really fervent about something that you need, really need to learn, it might not be that might not be the case. So there is nuance in all of these things. So let's kind of crack on with Tailwind. We've kind of committed to this so far. We haven't actually had a chance to use it, but it's upgraded to a major version, so we're going to do that. So let's go do that before we go and check on our we can actually do this on a different branch actually, because we don't need. Oh no, we need the UI, don't we? Okay, good point. Okay, so yeah, okay. So we have. Where did we actually install Tailwind? Here. So we are on 188. So hopefully it should just be a case of installing that. So what's the latest? 201. I just saw that in the top right up here is where I'm seeing that. So let's give that a try. Don't even know if that's on npm, but let's go take a look. So 201. Now I did read the release notes, but luckily we don't have any UI, so there's we don't have anything to update. So it all looked very sensible. There was a lot of like help with transitioning and things like that. We don't have that, so don't need to worry about it. So let's kill our server, and we can do uninstall. So hopefully, yep, that should show it going through. And it didn't seem like we had to change any of our implementation. So if we just jump back onto the server, we can hopefully still have our lovely button. No, that's our Heroku one. Okay, cool. So it did break. Amazing. Okay, so break that. That's pretty cool. So invalid post CSS plugin. Okay, so compilation fail. I'm just gonna make this a bit bigger so hopefully we can see that. So this is upgrading Tailwind. I wonder if this is because I'm actually just gonna remove this. I just want to make sure, because I did do a bunch of stuff. So what if we touch there? Okay, so then I'm gonna kill this and do yarn install again. Sorry about that. I'm just aware that we were playing around with that so much, trying to get GitHub Actions and Heroku working, that we may have just broken it, essentially. Cool, so they're installed. Let's see if these work this time. No, okay, so I've got the same. Although we didn't get the issue there with Webpack. Not rendering that out. Okay, we also haven't got our fix. Okay, so right, those envars did fix the thing. Okay, so we can run this in. Okay, that's great. I'm gonna jump back over just quickly because our fix for what's in the application header is now in this branch. So we now have our passing tests. So we're going to do show all checks our tests ran. And what we're going to do is we are going to rebase and merge those changes, which is going to be great. Confirm, rebase, and merge. And then I think it will run the tests on... Will it rerun those tests on master? Apparently not. Okay. Maybe we do on that one. Push. Okay. So that's in. We can then we can just do git stash for what's yeah, we can just do git stash for what's there. Nothing. git checkout master, git pull origin master. That's got that stuff in. We can then go back to our previous branch with git checkout minus, which will take us back to the branch we were on previously. And then we can do git rebase master. That does that, and then we can do, is there anything else in there that touched yarn? Maybe. Did it do anything here? Great, okay, so then we can do RVM list core. Okay, so sorry, I'm just setting back up. Oh man, there's spam in the chat. Let me just take a look at how to. Oh no, it hasn't made it through. Oh, it's on Twitch. Oh no. Okay, I don't know how to. They obviously don't have as good spam protections as YouTube. Bear with me a second. Just gonna clean up the spam in the chat, in the Twitch chat. Okay, this is okay. It's not there now, so that's really annoying. They presumably tidy it up, but it still makes it through onto my screen. Okay, that's super annoying. Okay, that's super annoying. So that's now all done. So let's see if the changes we made in that GitHub Actions branch fixed the issue we were having. The CSS not running. So Webpacker compiling, doing its thing, still doing its thing. Still, okay, so amazing, totally works. Sorry, I got really distracted by deprecation notices, but it works, amazing. So just to recap what happened there, the changes that I had made on the GitHub Actions branch to get Tailwind working. So if you remember earlier in the stream, we looked at that commit in here, which was the rename style sheets in Webpack and update head tags. So this stuff here, I think that was what we needed to do on master anyway. And so that is now, by merging this pull request, we then put it on master. We then rebased on top, so we played our latest commits back on top. That made this change available to us. So then when we went to run it again, hopefully that's what fixed it. So now locally, we have our version 2 of Tailwind. So we have updated. So let's. Oh, maybe. No, wait. Maybe we haven't because I didn't pop the stash. Okay, so we're about to break this again. Okay, fair enough. Damn optimism. Okay, so so we had stashed those changes we made, and then we can do yarn install version 2 of Tailwind. Yep, so that's installing it there. Stuff might be the issue there. Are we specifying any of that? No, we just install the one package. Do we need to specify that package? Well, let's just check the error happens again anyway. Good morning. Hey, how's it going? Good morning, Pedro. Welcome to your Sunday. Actually, I don't know where you are in the world. It could easily be not your Sunday morning. So okay, so let's assume this might fail this time. Okay, great. Okay, well, we didn't fix it, so at least we checked that everything was up to date, and so we now have those changes. So I was optimistic in hoping that the work on that branch had fixed this change. Super optimistic, enthusiastic, in fact. Okay, so invalid PostCS plugin found at plugins. Okay, so the error we were getting here does seem to be telling us something. So an invalid PostCSS plugin found at. Okay, let's go just take a look at, see if there's anything in here around PostCSS at latest. npm install. Okay, so let's do these two as well. Can you do the same? I think you can just swap out yarn for those. So what is it? Oh, actually, we can just do all three, can't we? Because I don't really care what the actual version is. Okay. Install has been replaced with add to add new. Okay. I'm assuming I can just interchange yarn and npm. This is a consistent theme of this stream of me not reading the docs in detail, and because it's a stream, I just want to kind of keep the screen moving and like do stuff rather than sitting reading docs. So plus it's more fun to bump into the error and then everyone guess what goes wrong. So it's really just adds a bit of adrenaline to the whole experience. Okay, so that seemed to have worked, and now we've actually followed some instructions from the docs because it's now actually done the post CSS thing library to the correct version. Webpacker compiling. Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay, cool. So me not reading the docs, that still didn't work. Good. That's if you run into issues, we have just run into an issue, you may need to use our post CSS 7 compatibility build instead. Okay. Oh, there's paragraphs. Let's be very diligent and let's work out what's going on. As of version 2, which we're moving towards, for some reason that I've now forgotten, Tailwind CSS depends on PostCSS 8. Because PostCSS 8 is only a few months old, many other tools in the ecosystem haven't updated yet, which means you might see an area like this in your terminal after installing Tailwind and trying to compile your CSS. Okay. To help bridge the gap until everyone has updated, we also publish a PostCSS compatible under the compat channel on npm. If you go into the error mentioned above, uninstall Tailwind and reinstall using the compatibility build. Okay. Okay. I'm going to keep swapping out npm for yarn, but I don't really know. JavaScript ecosystem stuff is not my forte. Oh, screw it. I think I can just do that as well. I think you end up with the same package.js changes. I think yarn is the runner, like the yarn is faster at doing the thing, but I don't think it changes the outcome of what actually happens. I may be way off on that. JavaScript ecosystem stuff is changing so often that it would become a small part-time job. I mean, it's literally people's full-time job to keep up with it, so it's definitely not something for me. Okay, so I'm hoping this fixes it. So there's something in the docs that's going to help us do this. And if you are watching this and interested in the learner's perspective on this side of things is you would stay on top of it more diligently, like if you're running a project, because you can see this is just simply updating something we're barely even using, and if you let your dependencies go out of sync too much, updating them is painful. So if you are working on a project as a learner, maybe it's your first one or something like that, and you plan to leave it for, I don't know, a year and then come back, you know, you could find benefits in just occasionally dropping another, then another one, then another one. A year later, there could be 2 small version updates and 1 large one, and you've got to do that big jump, especially, right? I mean, that's true of just Rails, let alone all of the JavaScript ecosystem stuff. And this goes back to the... okay. I copied that incorrectly. This goes back to the point we were making. No matches found post CSS. Okay, is the syntax for that wrong? Is it post CSS? What was the syntax we had originally? Just at latest. So can we just specify then? So the latest 7 is 3.5. Yeah, so you can see like yeah, okay. So that symbol just not supported. Okay, so let's do the same thing for auto pre Pixar. I'm gonna do the same thing again. This one's looking for the latest version of 9. 986. Okay, so yeah, like I was saying, like for learners, when you're debating, if you're getting guidance about having to learn, you know, different front end frameworks or anything like that, if you are working on a test project or something where you're just playing around, unless you want to, you just don't need to delve into those if you just want to get a few things working. Okay, I'm going to give this a couple more minutes and then I'm just going to duck out because I don't care enough about this to make it worthwhile. I think this is really, but I do think based on what we were talking about at the start of the stream about whether learners need to kind of delve into these, just some of the pain points. I know I'm not really reading the docs or really following what's going on, but that's just a simple example of like dependency hassle that when you're learning Rails or any of the kind of associated technologies, it's maybe useful to learn, but it's a real productivity killer because it's really stressful. Like I'm being flippant about like these breaking and things like that, but if you're trying to learn, if you're trying to progress, that's just so frustrating to your day. I'll be interested if this does work. Okay, so that has worked. So we have our call UI back. Cool. So I'm interested in this note here, which says many other tools in the ecosystem haven't updated yet, which means you might see an error. So I'm interested in what we are using. Because we're barely doing anything in here, I'd be interested to know in here what's not playing well with that. And whether we care about that at all. So that's interesting. Just looking at all of the... See, this is too... Like, this is a lot, just... I don't know. I don't want to go into that right now. Okay, so let's commit what we have, which is going to be good. So we can just do all of this. Oh, let's write a proper commit message as well, because I'm sick of going back and doing these things. So update Tailwind CSS to version 2. Okay, so what we're going to do is during the install, we did have an issue with, was it purge CSS? Dependency. And needed to use a compatible version. Here's the notes from the docs. Okay, so this is something that you regularly see on Stack Overflow. You can put a link to something in your commit messages, but the link will probably go out of date. So if you really want someone to know the thing that you're trying to reference in a commit messages, bring the thing itself. Don't just bring the URL. Because the link will break eventually and they'll be like 2 years down the line, desperate to know why their thing that they're following doesn't work. So we are going to... just grab the relevant bits of what we need. I tend to use markup syntax for... Oops. Oh, I haven't installed that plugin for the... Oh, let's install that now. That'll be... I can't remember which one I installed on my other machine. Align length, VS Code, wrapper extension. I just grabbed the most popular one, I think. Rewrap, that sounds right. Cool. I've got to get the setting sync thing turned on. Cool. So as of version 2, Tailwind that post CSS 8 is only from on yet. That's pretty cool. As it wrapped it also continued the markdown. That's fixed preserving indents in block quote. That's exactly what I just did. Amazing. So here. Yeah, I'm going to grab all of this. I'm going to forget. I can just guarantee that I'm going to forget this. Yeah, look at that. As it's done the wrapping, it's carried on any markdown that you're in. Really love that. So then we have... I'm actually going to grab this as well because I'm bound to forget that as well. No, that would be 3, wouldn't it? 1. Then I should do this instead. Just so that I'll know what's supposed to be happening there. And then put the notes to the docs as well because we're being diligent and we hope that will still work. Cool, that'll get us through. Don't know what that was. What was in that commit? So I just closed a file that I shouldn't have done. Commits. Oh, okay. It added the rest of the stuff that we'd done manually. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Cool. So that's brought us up to date. So let's go play. Okay. So other stuff that we were interested in from the learner's perspective, and this one I think is really interesting. So we want to we want to get our user interface more polished and have a nicer experience. So let's say, for example, I've killed my server. We want to have everything nicely centered on the page and stuff like that. And where does the button go next to that text box? Does it go below it? What is it? What color is it? What does it look like? So here is a good example. So here we want to center this. This is going to be a form. This is where the form will go to update the site model, and we'll have a form in here. So when you're learning Rails or something like that, there's a process that we were planning our app. Like, how is it going to be designed? How is it going to look? How's it going to work? One of the questions there is, how is it going to look? Like, how is specifically is everything going to look? And how it looks going to apply across the site? So by installing Tailwind, we've got this like consistent set of building blocks. So it's like, hey, this is what the font is, and then it will give you like, well, these are the brand colors that you've. These are the set of sizes that you've got. I can't remember what the syntax was, but it was like large one and medium and stuff like that. It has like these utility classes for it. They all give you all of your building blocks, but there has to come a point where you're like, okay, well, I've got all the building blocks. How are we going to decide how to lay them out and how they're going to fit? So one of the interesting points as a learner is, how does that design process go in with learning something like Rails and learning Ruby? And it's also one of those questions, again, like the front-end frameworks we were speaking at the start, where your experience could really easily be incredibly different from other people's, but it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. So an example of that is, if you are learning to code within an environment, an employer, for example, and they have a design team, and you're working on apps, they might give you the finished user interface, maybe not finished, but give you a user interface that you will then build. If you're working on your own projects, you might have nothing. Like, you're like, okay, well, I've got the same as we've got on the screen. We've just like rendered out some text, and we have no instruction manual as to how to go about doing anything with it. We've got a framework that gives us some building blocks, but no instruction manual. So I want to start there, and I'm interested in a couple of things. And one of the reasons I was interested in Tailwind is one of their upsell thingies is that they actually sell you. So they have a free open source building block framework with all the utilities in, but they have somewhere on here, I'm assuming. I hope it's on here. Maybe they have another web page for it. Right, Tailwind ready-made components. So they actually have another website which is like pre-built things that you can take and use. And I think this is really interesting to get you over that hurdle of like, how is it going to look? And you can, don't explore the preview, get early access. I think this is paid. Like you buy these, I think. Are these ones free? Okay, so these ones are free. And then just get early access. Yeah, pay. Okay, fine. So fair enough. So I think there's more. There must be more than the ones in here. Okay, so this is a good hero sections. Cool. Okay, and so if you're using a framework like okay, right. So you don't get them free. So this is a PNG preview of what you would get, but you can also go through and get the HTML, and then you have to pay for that. Right. Okay, that's really interesting. So what I'm trying to get to is, this is a pretty nice layout design. Presumably it's all responsive and fancy. So the building block framework from Tailwind is free, and then you can pay to have pre-built layouts, they call them components, built for you to get you over this hurdle. You want something out of the door that looks good. And you don't want to have to mess around with it. If you're working in a team that has a designer, this is the kind of thing you might get. You might get a graphic. Preferably, you don't want to work with something like that. You would rather have like a sketch file or a Figma file, which we'll move on to in a second, where you're like, I can then go and see what color this is, so I get the right value, or like exactly what the font size is, so I don't have to guess, and see what the spacing is between elements. If you're on your own, you might want to look at, how are you going to do this? How are you going to best translate what you're trying to build into a user interface? And there is nothing wrong with using pre-built stuff like this. So this is designed to be used in that way. That's what the people from Tailwind are trying to do. They're like, hey, we realize there's a problem here. Why don't we just solve it for you? Here's some stuff. You might buy, in the WordPress world, there's like themes. You can kind of buy a theme and take that apart and use that, see how they do things, change them. Or you can just go from scratch. Like, those are all totally viable, and there's a huge spectrum of everything in between, and it's also balanced with what are you trying to learn and what are you trying to implement quickly. So you don't care how it really works if it just works. One of the bigger issues that you might bump into is with more complex functionality in the front end, bumping into something like a template or a theme or a pre-built code. It looks great from the pre-built code, but might not work in the way that you want it to, either layout wise when it's responsive, or actually interactive wise. So, okay, user clicks on this button, and in the template here it's just a link, but what we want to happen is a pop-up that has a form in it or something like that. That's where you then have to get into the balance between finding something off the shelf and customizing or building something from scratch. So you can really get a long way with something off the shelf, but the learning has to happen at some point if you need to customize it. And then that goes all the way through to things like React and Vue, which we touched on at the start of the stream, which are hugely powerful, fancy JavaScript frameworks that do everything in the front end, or server-side rendered just to make things even more complicated for you, and that will integrate with some of these tools. And again, there are things available that will give you components built in that. But again, if you don't know that framework or wish to learn it, then simply using it to get some pre-built components that's a big jump for a small step, for a kind of small bit of value. So those are all the questions that as a learner I would ask myself. Can I just do what I need to get myself up and running? So we got this silly website live on Heroku just by having form elements and buttons and text, and it looks like garbage, but it works. You click on buttons and stuff happens. I mean, this button doesn't even look like a button. You know, there's no lines around the text boxes, but there's functionality there. So these are all things that I would consider. So let's go and make ours look pretty. Let's just see. This is fascinating to me. Let's just take a minor detour, because this example requires Tailwind CSS version 2. Well, we've just done that. Requires JavaScript. Okay. I don't know what that means. Are we supposed to have installed more stuff from Tailwind? Because we didn't. I'm just going to chuck this on that homepage layout just to see. Did we not create? Oh, here we go. Okay. So is our server running? Yeah. Oh no, I'm not on that homepage, am I? Wow, okay. See, that's productive. Like, that is copy and pasteable, which is pretty cool. So now we have, so we could do websites for streams. That doesn't make any sense, but whatever. Websites for your, okay, so there's 2 lines here, Twitch and YouTube channels. Refresh this. That's quick. I mean, I know this is not our image, it's probably some random thing from Unsplash, but we could easily swap this form out to go here. And if you look at that productivity boost, we've just been given a cool looking thing for free. So that's one of the really big advantages of being able to use a framework like Tailwind just to get you straight out of the gate. And presumably, can we just then keep going with some of these other, which ones don't have preview? We can go back and look at the other sections. So they had like CTA. Did they have a free CTA? Well, it's basically the same one that's on there. What else have they got? Okay, this one's cool. You gotta buy that one. Okay, PNG preview. I just like, these don't feel like crazy complex to build. I'm sure some of them are, like these probably do cool things when they're responsive. But what I quite like about this model is you can build these. They're not saying, here's 10% of the value, you've got to pay for the rest. you can build these using Tailwind yourself. They're saying the value is you probably can't be bothered. Like, you need to get this out the door, and we will. If you're a software developer, or you're charging for your time, odds are your time is probably, you can get to $149. That is in the UK like 110 quid. Oh, 112 quid. You can get 100 quid's worth of value out of saving that time pretty quickly. So if you're building static sites for someone, and you can grab these off and just swap them out, you know, this is like Bob from marketing or whatever, and you swap the text out, that you've saved yourself a lot of time. So I really like the idea that it's not hiding value from you. I am probably not interested in paying for that, because I think part of what we want to do here on the stream is kind of learn to build these things. Like, we can go and build them. Like, maybe we should have some of these and start here from. Oh, okay. Well, let's start with forms, because that's all we've got so far. So let's go. So this is marketing. What was the other one? One was called marketing, and one was like application or something. So is there anything on here? Application UI. Here we go. So we want like a centered form, and we can try and put input groups. Okay, so we can build something like these. Oh God, I have to say, it's already tempting just to buy these because it's so boring to do them. No, we're going to be very diligent and go and build stuff. Oh yeah, there's so many, like all the crappy little proof. So I've used a bunch of these like Foundations and Bootstrap. What's the one from, is it Zerb or is that Foundations? I can't even remember the name of the others. So many of these, and you're all essentially just doing the same thing, which is like putting a grey thing in front of a text box, making sure the rounded edges aren't there. I have also built one in the past, which again is as dull as you think it is. It's got the little drop down on the end. Yeah, pretty handy. Okay, let's build some, and then, to be honest, might buy them just to move us forward in the stream. Like, we should do some and then have like, why don't we do a few streams where we build some out so we can have some front end stuff, and then I don't really want to do that too much, so let's see how long that takes. And if it takes ages, I wonder if we could get like, maybe we could become like influencers and get freebies and do it that way. They could sponsor us. That would be good. Plus it would save me 100 quid. That would be amazing. Okay, let's build out a little form thingy. Okay, sorry, I've been scrolling. So let's go and write some code. Sorry, I've been rambling on. Form layouts. Is any of these? Okay, so there's stuff in here that we can use. Oh, hang on. So you can't buy that one. You can't grab a sample of that one, but it is included in this one already. Where's the website one? Oh, yeah, it's already there. Yeah, this yeah, there's a real reaction in my mind to just that much stuff in one element. I mean, normally in ERB views or something like that, just on personal projects, normally I keep pretty much the same character limit that I do in Ruby. It's like 90 characters, so that wouldn't be much longer than that, and then the CSS would take care of everything. Okay, but that's boring. Let's go and give this a try out. So we're gonna take this out. We were just playing around with that stuff. We don't need that for now. Okay, so we're gonna go back to our tried and true, super cool homepage. So let's go and try and build. Yeah, let's go and build this. So we can build out a flash. We can build out a heading. And we can build out the form and a little skip button. So let's go see what that looks like. So what would we want from the this form? So we want it to be Oh, they've actually got a little forms plugin-y thing as well. Wonder what that does. Wonder what that does. These all look pretty normal. Stuff, does it give you... Oh, is that what the JavaScript stuff is when it says needs JavaScript? Does it do stuff around validation and things? Okay, we can take a look at that separately. So what we really want to do is move everything to... We want a single column layout for this. So where are like the page level stuff? Let's go back to normal Tailwind and go dive into the docs. We did touch on a little bit of this, so... Okay, so we can jump over. We're not going to play with our homepage right now. Let's go and play with, in our views, we are now in our site setup, and let's play with our details form. Okay, so now we think that we have a page container. Cool, so that is giving us some sort of page. Let's swap these over. That will give us padding. Okay. Do we have any kind of typography backgrounds? Okay, so we could give ourselves a black background. I'm just interested to see. Ah, okay, so that's not for the whole page, but I was wondering if we could then get a white background here. Let's see the containers. One of the things that is worth getting comfortable with is just how ugly things are before they're not. So if you're there's no real value in kind of going from 0 to perfect. So I regularly do stuff like just chuck backgrounds, colors, borders, outlines, anything to help you visualize what you're working on. It doesn't matter. Like you just go nuts if you're not sure. You're not trying to get straight to that kind of perfect version we had before. That was like we're not trying to get straight here, for example. I'm just trying to see if we can get this kind of background with the panel on it. Although I'm not always hugely fussed about that. So what is this, for example? This one here. Okay, so they give themselves a grid container here. And the MD, so MD is the viewport size, that's medium, I guess. And I'm guessing it goes... That affects everything up. So that would be then 3 and 6, I guess. Oh no, so 3 columns with a gap of 6 in the medium viewport. Is there a little viewport editor on it? And then in here, decol span, so that's CSS grid, first column, and then two, okay, and then we move into here. So what's the actual shadow, SM rounded, SM. How does that know to have the white background? Where is that? BG white. Okay, so that's actually on the nested internal one. The shadow's on the external one. Small round, so from... And they only add the rounded one at the small viewport. Am I just checking that that's when I'm seeing SM colon, that's what I'm seeing. Yeah, so that applies from 640 pixels up and won't apply below. Okay. So what do you see? SM, MD, LG, XL, and 2XL. When we're looking in here, that's what we're looking at. So rounded medium will only apply that up. So you can see what happens if we pull it off. So it's got these rounded edges here, and we can presumably, if it follows the same syntax, we can change it to rounded LG. I'm aware that font's probably pretty small in. Can I bump that? Yeah. I don't know if it's possible to. Oh wow, yes, that is actually adjusting. I don't know if you can see it is adjusting the corner of that. Maybe not. We just take it off altogether. Yep, there's now a square edge up here. Okay, cool. So let's do the same thing. So let's I don't think we need the overflow because we want it to extend out for now. And apparently they then didn't add the BG white, they added that to an internal container, which I'm interested by. So does that now work on ours? Cool, so we now got our little lifted panel out, but we don't want it to be that big. We want it to be narrow. Okay, so do we build our own container for that internally? Or do we have a default container in Tailwind for that? No, it contains, okay, so that contains, so we can instead just make an element, and we just want like a max width, I guess. So for every CSS property you might do, there is a corresponding max width. There's a corresponding setting. Okay. So X MD. Okay, so let's say that we only want this. So it's not a container. It's actually just that. Okay. But we need it to have some padding. So we do this. This is really interesting. Like, I don't know if this is interesting for, like, this is not an approach I've ever really taken before. So that's not enough padding. Okay, so presumably we just play with these numbers. How do you then do, like, oh, here you go, adding padding to a single side. Control the PT6 for the whole element, PR4. Oh, I see. So you then add, so P is just padding, then PT. So it's just like a whole new CSS syntax. Okay. And then there's X and Y variants just to do those padding. Okay. Okay. Got to get my head around this. So okay, let's go back to that background. Is there like a little, oh, here we go, quick search for anything, is it? Background color. Okay, that's pretty quick, I like that. So it's, the one I wanted is just lighter. Yeah. Okay, but we can actually take that out of there and put it in the application layout. And just get that way, and then we can just like give everything that wash. Okay, which is what they've done, I think. Yeah. And then if we want, okay, so do we then make the whole thing a flex container and just to center this thing? This is if you're going back to that learner aspect, where you don't normally want to be making things up. I actually don't want it to be centered. I usually find that, to be honest, it's fine if it's just got some spacing at the top. Space between, what's that? Okay. Utilities for controlling the space between child elements to allow space. Space X for space Y. And what is it actually doing? Setting the values on, setting margin top and margin bottom. That's interesting. Because presumably a lot of the time you're using Flexbox for that anyway. Or grid, I guess, depending on what you're trying to do. But this one is just for unrelated elements. Okay, that's really interesting. I like that one. Let's see, we just want some space. So presumably, if the I only want margin top, so that would be consistent with doing that. Okay, so 4 is not very high. So these. Are these like, I've already forgotten what they. Okay. So what number would I have? I've got 8, 16, 12, 14. Okay, so so that's pretty good. We've got a gray background and we've got our little panel-y thing. And then this is already a heading. Now this one we did in our global thing here. So this one is where we said each one should look like this, just to save the syntax, because that then gives us some like consistency between the semantics and the and the kind of visual appearance. Okay, so oops. So if we were to change this to H2, we should see it change some. Okay. So we can actually take that off. We don't need that anymore. So we want to add in our form elements. Okay, so I'm gonna grab in here this thing. Can we? Okay, so we need. So this itself is a CSS grid display, and then it sets up its template columns. Can we just lift that then? Copy HTML. Okay, no is the answer. Oh, but maybe only because we haven't done our form elements to look like they want. I mean, it does actually do the right layout, it just looks wrong. So I wonder if that form thing we saw mentioned earlier probably kicks in here. Or whether, yeah, so is there anything else that's being applied that's not? coming from those classes. It doesn't seem to be. Okay, so this is SM text SM for that. Is this the same thing? Just coming here, so focusing into SM test SM. So what's the computed font size for that? 14, and ours is 14. So the issue is the padding on that. So where is it getting those values from? Radius, radius is fine, that looks good. Padding left, and what's that coming from? Type text components v2. And do we have the same thing here? Looking for the padding on this. We've got 0 coming from our browser. Okay, so yeah, we're missing that components aspect. Okay, so that is something you then need to build in, I would guess. So where is this coming from? Components v2 .css. Oh, so this has been built. Okay, so components v2. Forms. Change the font styles in our browsers. Remove the margin in Firefox and Safari. Right, okay, so we saw that this said it like required here, this example requires some changes to your config. Plugins require add Tailwind CSS. Let's give that a try. I'm interested to see while we're here. Module.exports. Let's see if that fixes it. So plugins. It's interesting, they're kind of building out a whole ecosystem that I don't have a lot of visibility over. So then we do that. Will that happen when we run? Surely we have to run yarn again, I guess. Okay. How do I get it to actually run the installs? Do I have to run a special Tailwind command? I think the answer might be yes. Plugins. Adding utilities. Does it say how to actually install them, or will it happen automatically? Do I have to? Damn it. Tailwind forms. Oh wait, is this part of the paid thing that I don't have? Okay, maybe that's not a thing. Not 100% sure how to get that working. Custom. So this is custom forms. Okay, I think I have to do that, but just with forms. that seemed to be what they were saying. Cool, okay. And I've already added it to my Tailwind thing, like the ducks. So then if we now do it. Yeah, really getting in deep with the things that we rely on from this external dependency, going back to what we were talking about earlier. Okay, so it's compiling. Does it now have fancy form stuff in it? Would be pretty cool. It broke. Oh, hey, oh wow, it did. Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting in terms of it being pitched as utility first and everything's like these building blocks that you can play with, but also there's a bunch of other other external dependencies that you need to get it working. But if you just take a look, I'm going to wrap things up here because I think that is a really good example. Look at what we have on the screen here. Like, we could have, the options we talked about earlier is like we could have written that from scratch with custom CSS ourselves. We could have grabbed the components that they had available from Tailwind as an example. And instead we built it sort of using their utilities plus one of their kind of module things that they provide. And we were able to do that in like casually, like half an hour or something like that. And there are impacts as to what that means. Like that now means that, is this how we're going to do all of our form elements? Does that create a strong dependency on that provider that we really need to maintain? If they make decisions we don't agree with in the future, what would that mean? Again, it's HTML and CSS, so probably you can always just kind of get it back, do it yourself without too much difficulty, just with some effort. And also, when you're a learner, what is the impact of those options? Like, would we actually have been more beneficial as a learner to go and do this ourselves rather than having Tailwind add padding and stuff? Because getting form elements aligned across multiple browsers is a headache that's worth bumping into a few times as a learner, because it's annoying sometimes. They don't all play ball, especially if you want to go back and support IE11, which Tailwind 2 doesn't. But also on the flip side of that is look how far we were able to come quickly, and we were still doing it on the DIY version. If we had grabbed something off the shelf, we could have gone twice as far, twice as fast if we looked at that homepage example that they had. So I'm going to wrap things up there. We've covered loads today, kind of a bit of a scattershot stream this morning. So we started with GitHub Actions, got a pull request merged. I will take a look at the domain and see what's going on there, because that was working midweek, so I've obviously broken something accidentally without realizing it. We then discussed the options for front-end frameworks and things like that from that kind of learner's perspective. Really interesting to see what anyone who bumps into this stream finds useful about that. And then we took a look at building out our UI, and now we're going to have this kind of more consistent user interface around like setting up a channel, which now looks $1 million compared to what it did just half an hour ago. And you will be able to say like in here like what's the URL of your channel, and this could be, maybe we could actually do maybe it'd be YouTube only, and it would be / and then we could tell people to fill it in after that. So if that then wouldn't be example. Holy crap, these lines are long. Can I just bring that down to make it more readable? It's so long. That's still long. So this would then be take that off there. Channel /123 or whatever the URL is, and then we could make this wider. Don't know the syntax well enough yet, so this one here is flex1, so that's filling its, I'm assuming that's filling its flexbox container, which is here, MT1. It's MT. God damn it. When you're really into like a framework or something, it is like you just read it like you read quick search MT dash. Oh, that's margin, okay. So MT1, that's margin top 1, okay, fine. So what is preventing that from being the full width? So that's grid columns 3. What's gap 6 doing? Sorry, I'm going down another rabbit hole, but I just want to know why that won't stretch over. So it's that wide there and there and there. What's that doing? So that's setting up a thing of 3, but only filling 2 of them beyond. Yeah, okay. So we could always have that go all the way across. So it's setting up a grid of 3 columns. I'm learning to read the Tailwind code. So setting up a CSS grid of 3 columns. On the mobile, it's filling all 3, but then beyond that, it's only filling 2 of them to give you that nice to the left look on desktop. But we don't want that because I've just made this really wide, so we can just remove this and have it fill that whole thing. So refresh this. So then this is like, hey, you can put in your YouTube your URL thingy, and we could have our button down below. So that it takes us to having a user interface, and yeah, I think next week we might carry on with this. I think we might just dive more into doing more Tailwind stuff and just really build it out. I'll see if I can get some time in the week to do a sketch file or something like that to compare to. That would be interesting to see how you could use the Tailwind components in Sketch, I guess. So thank you so much. I know it wasn't particularly Rails specific this morning. Thank you to everyone who has had a chance to take a look at the stream, and for everyone who has dropped by and looked at our user onboarding stuff. So I know that there were a few people who gave feedback saying that was useful. I think especially the planning one seemed to be watched a lot. That's got more views than the other ones when I posted a link about it on the Reddit thread. So I think that what we'll do is do some more UI, and then we will plan out the kind of feature of maybe going, once we now, maybe we'll ask for the YouTube URL, and what we'll do is we'll then go and kind of grab the UI and maybe build it out from YouTube or something like that, and then we can do more planning. So that really seemed to be something that I then saw a couple of other people talking about, like when you're starting something out and you're a learner, how do you actually work out what the edges of what you're trying to scope out are? So I think that would be interesting. So I hope you all have lovely weeks. Have a great Sunday, and I will speak to everyone either during the week or next week. Thanks a lot. Bye.